All right, hey folks, so we are in for part 2 of the May Q&A. This will be the final part, and I'll go through the rest of the questions. So firstly, thanks for making it onto my channel. If you have any questions or comments, pop them down below. And if you'd like to work with me on your own strength and physique goals, there's a link in the description. So let's talk. All right, so we'll get straight into it. And first question here is from Callan. Callan is on my Patreon, so his answer gets priority. And he's written about starting a cut. So I'll read it out and then we'll sort of summarize the gist of it. So he says, I'm thinking of starting a cut. I'm in no hurry. So is a 0.5% weight drop week worth it? I hope for a little recomp, or just do the regular 1% a week. Currently he's at 17%. He's been massing for 2 years since he's been at 12%. So good question. So the main gist is there's 2 strands to this question. Firstly, what is an appropriate rate of cutting? Okay. And secondly, can we recomp while we cut? And they're both kind of connected. So let's hit the first question. What is an appropriate rate of cutting? I generally give the 0.5 to 1% rule for cutting for my clients. I think 1% cut per week is a very robust cut. Like, it's a good, decent cut. And there are advantages of going that fast. If you've got a lot of weight to lose, let's say you're above 20% body fat, you can't really see your abs, there's not really a great deal of danger in losing any muscle. So you can afford to go, and you should go pretty fast. So about 1% is pretty good. I think unless under very special circumstances or you're very, very large and very overweight, 1% is about the fastest you should go, because that's still a very fast rate of weight loss. For a guy who's 200 pounds, in 10 weeks, that's 20 pounds. And we need to normalize that as a relatively fast rate of weight loss. That's pretty rapid. Now, I think we get sort of flummoxed with people who say that you should be able to lose fat faster than that. And you have all these transformations of people losing a lot of weight very, very quickly. But the normality of the matter is 2 pounds of fat is a hell of a lot of fat. So to oxidize and burn that off every single week for multiple weeks on a row is actually a very impressive feat. I think it gets confounded with false expectations from influencers, but also it gets confounded with people mistaking water weight for fat weight, and they're getting used to those quick initial fast weight losses. Like, if you're, 250 pounds, 300 pounds, and you've just started a diet, you're going to lose 5 to 10 pounds in the first couple of weeks very easily. Now, once that slows down into a more normalized rate of weight loss to 1%, you'll almost feel like you're failing, but you're not. Like, that's normal. It's normality. So 1% is very, very normal. In fact, it's on the rapid end of normal. 1.5%, I would say, is more than likely a little bit too fast for most people. That would be 3 pounds for a guy who weighs 200 pounds. And again, once you're past the initial 2 weeks, that's far too rapid. It's not sustainable. The level of deficit you'd need to sustain that would be incredible. If we just do some quick maths on that, this is not quite exact, but it's right enough for our needs to make the point. A pound of fat is about 3,500 calories. Divide by 7, 500 calories a day. If you take 2 pounds of fat, that should be a deficit of 1,000 calories. Okay, so that's quite robust. If you're a guy whose maintenance is 3,000 calories, you drop to 2, you're going to be hungry. If your maintenance is 2,500, that involves you dropping to 1,500 calories, or increasing your cardio far above what you were previously doing to initiate that level of weight loss. It's quite a robust level of weight loss. Now, if you're saying you want to do more than that, like 3 pounds a week or 1.5%, then that's a very large deficit. It starts to be a deficit which is unmanageable unless you're just very, very large and have a high intake. So 1,500 calories off per day to lose 3 pounds is tremendously high. So when it comes to cutting, I think we need to normalize 1% as actually relatively fast. 0.5% is very much worth it. It is a good rate of weight loss. It still falls within the confines of being normal. 0.5 to 1% is very, very normal. Anything far beyond that in either direction is out of the realms of ordinary. So if you were to say 0.25%, okay, that's a lot slower. Then you run into other problems of how do you manage to track that successfully. At a 0.5% weight, you can still track that fairly successfully. I think Callan is about 170 pounds, 160 pounds, something like that. So 0.5% is quite easy to track. It's 0.8 pounds per week. And if he draws that up on a chart and he weighs himself on average every day and finds an average weekly reading, great, he can track that no problem. So your 0.5% is a very robust weight loss. Don't be fooled. That's great. And to get from 17 to 18 down to 12 to 13, it won't take that long. Probably a 10-week cut and you're done. And it won't be that stressful. So yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do things. So the second question is the recomp question. This is an interesting one. Now, I am going to do a separate video on recomp because I want to touch upon it again. But just to give you a hint into the idea that I have about the recomp video, recomping is definitely possible. Okay. For most people, it's not probable. I'll just say that up front. Most people aren't going to be able to do it. And it's not because it's physiologically impossible. It's because most people don't have their ducks in a row. Now, Callan, if you look at Callan, he's built like a truck. He obviously trains hard. He eats well. And when he says he's 17, 18%, that's a genuine 17%, maybe close to 15. Like he's a lean, stacked looking guy. So most people just don't have their lives in order enough to even execute a proper bulk or a proper cut, never mind do a recomp, where everything has to be almost perfect. So I see both sides of the argument. Physiologically, it's possible. We see it in the research, it's possible. You see research on high-level rugby players, high-level athletes. And so the average Joe and Jill thinks, yeah, I can do that as well. Not past the beginner stage. You're not a high-level athlete. It's like people who lift with really sloppy form and say, well, that's how Dorian lifted. Well, that's how Ronnie lifted. It's like, look, fuckface, you're not Dorian. You're not Dorian. You're not Ronnie. So there are ways to do things when everything is perfect. There are options available to you when everything is perfect. And there are options available to you when you're just trying to get a little bit ahead every time, like a +1, whatever. So for most people, recomp is not going to be acceptable. It's not going to be possible. For Callan, I think he probably will get a recomp. And the way to get a recomp is quite clear. You are in a slight deficit and you carry on training hard and progressively. You eat enough protein, make sure your rest and sleep and recovery is all good, and you will recomp. That will happen. But I don't want anyone listening to this to get a false sense of reality there. And I will do a video on this. The reason why most people will fail the recomp is because they don't have their ducks in a row. So it's easier for them just to focus on one path, which is bulking or cutting. Physiologically possible, yes. Probable, not as much. We're not working with ideal lifestyles and ideal clients all the time. So but for somebody like Callan, it's definitely possible. Okay, hopefully that answered the question, and I'm going to bring it on to the next one. So the Spartan said, hey Faz, do you have a video on how one looks worse while cutting at first? I'm in that dead zone where I'm looking like poo and feel like I'm losing muscle, but I know I'm just glycogen depleted. Yeah, well, I don't think we need a video on this really, but it's quite simple. You've basically hit upon it anyway. Maybe if I explain why this is occurring, it might psychologically be better. You've pretty much identified why. It's mostly glycogen and water. That's all. So you have a certain level of fullness in the muscles, which causes you to lose, well, it causes you to look lower body fat than you currently are. So if your muscles are nice and full, they're pumped, then you're going to look more muscular, you're going to look leaner to the naked eye, okay? Now, this is the illusion that bodybuilders try and do on peak week. They try and load their muscles up so they appear to be slightly leaner. Now, if you're in a position where you're depleted and flat, then the opposite is true. You're going to look slightly fatter. Now, one thing you did say, which is crucial, is your strength is going up. I mean, that's a big thing. I think the key, the phrase which I constantly hear in bodybuilding is, if you're afraid to get flat, you will remain fat. Obviously, that's a bit jokey, so don't take it too seriously. But yeah, it's true though. I mean, I've never done a cut where I've remained full the entire time. Now, there are ways of retaining some fullness, and I do that with my clients, particularly my contest prep clients, because they have the diet locked in to the point where they can play around with it during the course of the week, and we can play with nutrient timing, different macros, stuff like that. So there are ways of reducing the feeling, but there's no way of being as full as you would be on a bulk when you're on a cut. I mean, it's impossible, clearly impossible. So there's nothing that you can do which is going to mean you're as full on a bulk as you would be on a cut. It's just, that's not possible. But I guess my question is, should you be concerned about that? No, not really. So I guess the bigger question is, what is your mentality going into a cut? And I want to talk about this. So the way that I see things when I'm on a cut is I map out my time. Okay. So let's say I'm going to start a 20-week cut, and that's appropriate for me as an example. I will map that out in my head to say, okay, 20 weeks. Okay. Week 1, what do I need to do? I need to get the next meal right. I need to get this day right. I need to train right. I need to eat right. I need to sleep right. And then that's 1 day down. Next day, get it right again. Next day, next day, next day. Across the course of this week, I need to have 35 meals. I need to train 4 times. I need to do 4 cardio sessions. Tick, 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 tick. Week 1, big tick. Then I do the same week 2. Same week 3. And by week 4, that's a month down. Month ticked off, big tick. Then I go on another few weeks. Week 5. Okay, I'm a quarter way through my prep. Big tick. Week 7, I'm a third of the way through my prep. Big tick. Week 10, I'm halfway through my prep. And remember, we're doing everything right from day 1. The meals, the cardio, the training. Tick it off. Is it a good week? If you've got a coach, you check in with them once a week and go, boss, done, nailed it. Coach says, great, you've nailed it. It gives you a nice reset, a nice boost for the rest of the week. You go again, you do it again. And slowly over time, the weeks add up to months. And then by the end of it, you're 20 weeks in, you're ripped, you're shredded, you actually look like a Spartan, and that's your cut done. That's the mentality you need to take. If you're overly focused to the point where you're worrying about what you look like now, you're taking your eyes off the prize. Focus on those things. How do you know you're getting better? Because the next meal you eat is going to be spot on. That's what you should be concerned with. Be concerned with getting your cardio done, getting your training done, getting your diet done, day, by week, by month. Tick all of these boxes off as you go through. That's your mentality. That's where your focus should be. And don't turn around and tell me you're focused on those. What I'm saying is focus on that. Don't focus on this. Okay? That's where your focus needs to be. Tick those. Place your energy there. Don't place your energy here. Avoid that because it's not productive. Stick to your plan. Nothing else matters. That's how you should approach this. That's how I want my athletes to approach these things. That's the mindset you take into something like this. That's how you win. Okay. Next up, Richard says, right, which is an OG of the channel. Hi Faz, what's your opinion on chin-ups versus pull-ups? He says he can do more chin-ups with more weight, but only manage sort of 6 pull-ups. And how do I feel about different grips? So we've got 3 questions here. So firstly, chin-ups versus pull-ups. Secondly, what about different variations? And thirdly, what about straps? So I'll cover all 3. Firstly, chin-ups versus pull-ups. And really this answer is for every variation. They're just variations, Richard. I wouldn't be overly concerned. They're just variations. Okay, that's all. I wouldn't be overly concerned with your level of strength on either of them. I would just be concerned with how you progress week to week. That's all. They're just variations. There's nothing special about the chin up. There's nothing special about the pull up. They actually both have very similar bicep activation as well. You know, so there's very little difference in them. People act as if pull-ups just don't activate the biceps at all. Well, clearly they do. And so do chin-ups. So they're just different variations, that's all. There's nothing massively to be said about them. Hopefully you guys are beginning to see that in theory as well as in practice, I'm not a proponent of any one exercise. I think it's a very narrow view of bodybuilding to focus on specific exercises as the keys to progress, or conversely, things that aren't going to make you progress. Like it's not about exercises. It's about sets and reps, and the exercises which you enjoy will change month by month, will change year by year. Okay, so I wouldn't focus on comparing exercises, because then you lead to those kind of questions like, well, what's your opinion? What about leg presses versus squats? Who gives a? Who cares? Doesn't matter. One year do leg presses, one day do squats. Maybe you do both. Doesn't matter. What matters is more in the execution, the sets and reps, the progression. That's where the magic is. If there's magic, that's where it is. So I don't have an opinion on comparing exercises, really. There are some exercises which are provably useless, like Bosu ball anything, some exercises like that. Different grips, like reverse grip tricep push downs, which is pointless. But in general, most good solid exercises are fine, and they will work for variety. In the course of a lifetime, you're going to use all of them, and you should use all of them. You should rotate when you get stale. That's how you get stronger. So yeah, hopefully that answered both first two questions. And the last one is, should straps be used? Yeah, never let your grip fail you on pull-ups and chin-ups or anything really back-related. You're there to train your back. You're not there to train your forearms. You can train them later. I find forearms, it's just such a minor thing. Forearms are going to grow no matter what. So yeah, strap up. It's not like you're not going to use your forearms when you strap up. So strap up. Don't let your grip limit you at all. And yeah, just to kind of re-emphasize, when it comes to exercise selection, there are no magical exercises. And it's important to note that, because the same people who, in theory, agree that there are no magical exercises, they still prioritize certain exercises. Well, it's giving off the wrong impression. Like, there literally are no magical exercises, none whatsoever. So whether you're doing chin-ups, pull-ups, whether you're doing pull-downs, hammer strength pull-downs, whatever, it doesn't matter. The focus, and this was a focus of my. I did a video the other day on how to put together routines, and you can see very much in the way that I put together routines, the exercises come last, not first. No one cares about specific exercises. That's last on the priority list, completely last. What's first is volume, split, intensity, how things are going to fit together, total volume per body part, the volume allocation across the week. The specific exercises are so far down the totem pole, they're almost irrelevant. You just have to do some good exercise in the place. That's all. And then individualize it to you, of course, so they don't hurt and they work well for you. All right, hopefully that answers your question. Next, we have, what's going on here? Ooh, sorry. My Windows got a bit messed up there. Okay, next we've got, okay, still messed up. Here we go. Right. Sorry. Sorry, I don't know what's going on here. I'm looking very lost. All right, anyway. Next is Leroy Carlson. Leroy's one of my clients. He's a really good guy. He's been working really hard recently on a VLCD. So now, Leroy, you asked a question which is a very common question that many people have asked me over the years. And they ask because they've been training for a number of years, 5, 10 years, whatever, and they've not really experienced any gains. And so they see this training endeavor and they want to know, is it worthwhile? Have I just missed the boat, basically? The answer is a resounding no. Like, you have not lost your beginner gains at all. At all. Just to reassure you, absolutely 100% no, not at all. Now, are you going to be able to get your beginner gains? Well, it'll depend. Okay. Now, I want to phrase this very carefully, because I don't want to discourage you, but you need to be conscious of this, which is maybe one of the reasons why a lot of people don't ever get their beginner gains. And I want you to be conscious of it. And you're a client of mine, so I'm going to be straight up front with you, okay? And we will discuss this as well in our check-ins. The reason that you've not yet gotten your beginner gains is down to your approach in training and your approach in diet, okay? Now, whether you will be able to get your beginner gains is going to depend on your ability to adapt to, I guess, my instructions. Now, so far, for everyone watching, Leroy has kicked ass. Leroy's been on a VLCD and he's lost a good deal of weight. I think off the top of my head, he's lost 8 kilos of body fat in a very short space of time. So Leroy's kicking ass. Like, you know, if you see his name on my comments, tell him well done, because he's smashing it. So far, diet-wise, we're on the right track. We need to see this out, and then we need to transition to weight gain and an actual muscle building routine, which we'll do for a long period of time. So your ability to get you not only your beginner gains, but also to fulfill your potential will be dependent on how well you can adapt your old worldview of training to the new one. It's kind of like when people get into education late in life. And I can speak on this because I'm a school teacher. When you're a kid, most kids, in my experience, are willing to learn. Most kids, even the naughty kids, they'll turn up to class, they'll want to learn. Usually the naughty kids are naughty because there's something else going on. But in general, kids want to learn. Okay. Now, when it comes to adults, because I have done some adult tutoring as well, it's a slightly different story. They have more and more years built up of various things in their head which prevent them from learning. And I don't mean, you know, disabilities or different ways of sort of like diagnosis. I mean attitudes towards learning. That's what I mean. Now, if they are to become a lifelong learner and actually start a master's at 30 or 40 or whatever, then they're going to have to overturn more years of negative habits than the kid. The kid has virtually no years of negative habits. He's fresh into life. The adult has 10 to 15 years of building up these barriers in their head, of doing things the wrong way, of not putting in the work, not putting the effort, not putting the hours. Now, in a similar way for you, Leroy, you've landed at where you are because of the way you do things. That's why you never got your beginner gains. Whether you can get them is not down to your physical potential. It's more down to your mental potential. So yeah, they're still on the table. They're still on the cards. You just need to carry on the way you are because you're doing really well. Okay, but hopefully that's a lesson for everyone else too. You've all still got the same potential as when you were younger. It's the mental stuff which changes. And this is one of the reasons why when I'm managing diet clients, it's always the older clients who are more troublesome. Always, because they already have a life built up. They have a life, they have habits, they have family, they have a whole sort of field, a whole scenario of life and choices already built up and ingrained. And they've been doing the same thing for years and years and years. To get them to change, it's difficult for them to marry together their goals with their new lifestyle. If you got a kid, like 20 to 25 years old, who wants to do that, it's a lot easier. They don't have years of built up habits. You know, some of my clients are younger. I have some clients who are 18 to 20. It's even easier for them. You know, they have less and less of these bad habits built up. So, you know, that's really the key for everyone to listen to. It's can you change your lifestyle and your habits to reflect what your goals are? And if you couldn't do it for the last 10 years, what makes you think you can do it now? And I don't mean to be harsh, but you know, that's where you hire a coach who keeps you accountable. How do you change? How do you change? How do you initiate change? Because it's not about knowing what to do. Everyone knows what to do. The internet is a vast array of information, right? Everyone knows what to do. How do you make the change? That's where you hire the coach. That's where you do what Leroy's doing. And he's not only doing well, but 8 kilos in, I think, what is it, Leroy? Is it 5 weeks, 6 weeks? I think 6 weeks. No, 5 weeks, because we just started the deload. 8 kilos in 5 weeks. He's smashing it. Why is he smashing it? Because finally he has somebody on his shoulder for accountability and knowledge, mostly accountability. Yeah. And it's the same with you guys who are watching. Can you achieve in 2022 what you failed to achieve since 2010? Physically, physiologically, yes. Mentally, that's where the difference is. So, right, next question. If this will work. Okay. Opinions on the Larsen press. The exercise has been getting quite a lot of popularity recently. It's not recently, no. It's a very old exercise. The Larsen press, prior to Mr. Larsen taking it up and doing a lot with it and bringing it to the mainstream in the US, it was called the feet up bench press. And we've been doing that in England for years. I remember doing the feet up bench press in England 2008, as early as then. It's a very old exercise, but these exercises, their popularity comes in waves. So it's a good exercise. It's a very solid exercise. It has just been repopularized recently and made more kind of trendy, which is a good thing. It's a good thing, but it's always been around in one form or another. All the British guys in powerlifting use the feet up bench press extensively when I was powerlifting, and no doubt they did it 10 years before that, and 10 years before that, 10 years before that. It's just that right now you're seeing it a lot on Instagram. I saw it a lot 10 years ago when I was powerlifting. I don't see it that much now because I no longer powerlift, but you are now into the YouTube space, the social media space. That's why you're seeing it a lot. It's kind of like where if you just buy let's say you buy a blue car, a blue Nissan, I don't know. All of a sudden you're going to see blue Nissans everywhere. Just the way it is. So yeah, it's a fine exercise. It's a very, very good exercise. It's one of the best. But yeah, not much else to say on it really. It's been around for a while. It's a good rotation. It should be in a good rotation of core upper body exercises, similar to the close grip bench press, the incline close grip bench press, the 3 count paused bench press, the incline press, and a bunch of others. They're all in that golden sphere of bench accessory exercises for raw lifters, for sure. This works. Okay. All right. Final question from James. Now, I'll answer this question in stages, I guess, James, because it depends on the money you have available. I'll say this. I probably wouldn't start a home gym now because things are very expensive. I created my home gym in 2010. I spent about $3,000 in 2010, and that got me 320 kilos worth of weights, a power rack, safeties, like spud straps, a very good barbell, Texas power bar, and a bunch of other stuff like weight trees and everything for $3,000, bargain. That setup now would probably cost you about $10,000. So it's a hard time to put together a gym. But I would say a rack is important. I would go for a power rack or a Smith machine. Depends. I mean, when I was putting together my home gym, it was more for powerlifting. So, but a Smith machine will also be very good if you're training by yourself at home. It may be better for bodybuilding potentially. So, a good, decent, solid Smith machine or a power rack, either would be fine. On top of that, sufficient amount of weight plates. So 200 or 300 kilos worth of weight plates. I would also think it's worthwhile getting adjustable dumbbells. That's probably the cheapest way to get a variety of dumbbells. So that's what I've got at home, is these 10 kilo handles with Olympic collars. You can just put your regular weights on them. So that's useful. I would say that's probably your minimum, and a bench, obviously. So you've got a rack, weights, a barbell, dumbbells, adjustable. Now, beyond that, you're looking at dip bars, maybe a T-bar row attachment, a sissy squat attachment. Something else for the legs is almost certainly valuable because leg training is notoriously difficult for home gym trainers. Okay, you've got squats, variations of squats, that's about it. If you can get a hand on something like a sissy squat, or if you've got a bit more money, something like a combo leg press hack squat, one of those which alternates. That's pretty good. Yeah, then beyond that, even getting a small cable setup is pretty good. Like I've got one at home. So next to the power rack, I've actually got a cable station with a seat, a pec deck, pull down, a low handle, everything. So that's pretty good too. I picked that up pretty cheaply. It was second hand. I think I paid 120 quid for it. So got it off eBay. Pretty good deal. Some guy was getting rid of it. So those are good options. So I would take it in stages. Firstly, the power rack and the weights, then the dumbbells, then some leg attachments, then potentially a cable attachment too. I've got various bars as well, like easy curl bars, bicep blaster, all that stuff. So that's the order of like how much money you have available. Bear in mind, you don't need to spend all of it at once. You can buy the essentials first and then move on and buy rest afterwards. I think that's the last one. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to call it there. and I will speak to you in the next video. Hopefully that was a good, useful Q&A. Give it a like, subscribe, share, and I'll speak to you in the next one.